Hello everybody and welcome to a video all about hacks. We'll be looking at what is the lowest chance for your opponent to get an attack off due to luck and chance in this game. It's a fairly controversial topic, but this is purely for science, and I wouldn't expect any of you lovely viewers out there to want to weaponize these deplorable tactics in battle. So prepare for a fairly mathsy video that you will hopefully enjoy and learn something from too. I'd like to begin with a caveat. I won't be covering 100% chances not to attack, for example the first turn of sleep, or flinching your opponent while they're trying to use focus punch. Stuff like that isn't particularly relevant here. We're talking about stacking effects that have a chance of stopping the opposing Pokemon from attacking, but does not guarantee that they won't attack, like a fake out flinch. So what are the factors we'll be considering? First off, we'll look at statuses. Then we'll look at volatile statuses, which I'll explain about in a minute. Then we'll move on to attacks and their secondary effects. And finally we'll consider if abilities and item effects can come into play too. And then I'll end off the video with another consideration to make that's not directly relevant here, but I think is something that some people might have in the back of their minds, and I definitely thought about too. So first off, statuses. And the most obvious one that may come to mind when you think about hacks and not attacking may well be paralysis. It's easily applied and comes with a 1 in 4 chance to stop your opponent from attacking. This is a good start, but it's not actually the most powerful status to prevent your opponent from attacking, although it's probably the most viable in battles because it's really easy to apply, and once you've paralyzed your opponent they stay paralyzed, it doesn't resolve, so it's probably the most viable one in battle. We could consider sleep. After the first turn the opponent only has a 1 in 3 chance to wake up, which is better than paralysis, but it's still not the best. The best status to apply, if you can, is freeze, which gives your opponent only a 1 in 5 chance to thwart an attack on a turn. If you want to find out more about applying the freeze status, I've already done a video on that, so you can check that out in the description. So you've frozen your opponent. What next? Well, we'll look at volatile status. What does this even mean? Volatile status is any status condition that can appear in battle but that disappears after a battle, or if you switch out, for example. And the most obvious example of this is confusion, which is definitely something that we want to look into here. Confusion gives a 1 in 3 chance to prevent your opponent from attacking while they hit themselves in confusion instead. And that's only been reduced to 1/3 in Pokemon Sun and Moon. Before that it used to be a half, but actually it's been nerfed a little bit, which is a good thing overall because everyone hates confusion, but just for this experiment it does mean that the numbers won't be quite as impressive, but don't worry, they're still impressive. So that's cool, we'll use confusion. Any other volatile statuses? Actually, yes. Attract is another one, which gives a 50% chance for your opponent being immobilized by love. As long as they're the right gender, bloody heteronormative, Game Freak denying beautiful and natural gay Pokemon love. What's interesting with these volatile statuses is we can stack these on top of each other, so you can be attracted and you can be confused. I mean, we've all been there. And also you can be frozen at the same time. So all of that goes together and you are already stacking in a lot of effects, which is great. So now we've got normal status and volatile status all covered, we can move on to attacks and their secondary effects. And the one that we want to look into is none other than the disgusting flinch. It can completely stop the opponent from moving depending on the additional effect chance of the move. The best case is with a 30% additional chance to flinch, and a ton of moves have this effect, things like Air Slash, Iron Head, Headbutt for example, so we're going to use one of those moves. The final considerations are about abilities and items. There are abilities and items that can directly try to add secondary effects themselves, which can prevent the opponent from moving. So for example, King's Rock or the Stench ability try to add another flinch chance to moves. With the King's Rock, it gives a 10% flinch chance to moves that cannot already flinch. So that's actually a lower chance than the 30% moves like Headbutt that we were looking at already. But the chance activates for every time you hit the opponent. So a Pokemon with Skill Link using a multi-hit move that hits 5 times gives you a higher chance than 30% to flinch the opponent, which is really cool. It's actually just over 40%, and you can pause right now for some proof there. It's not 50%, it's slightly less than that, it's about 40%. But actually, abilities are better than using this King's Rock Skill Link combination to get that flinch chance. Stench is one option, but it's not as powerful as Serene Grace. So Serene Grace with a 30% chance to flinch is the best way to do that, because Serene Grace doubles that secondary effect chance to 60%. And this is the maximum flinch chance we can try to use with an attack. So in the end, I couldn't think of any items that would actually be useful. We just need to go for an attack with a 30% chance to flinch and Serene Grace. So that's it. Looking at our overall strategy for the best way to prevent the opponent from attacking, we've got the freeze status, we've got the confusion and attract volatile statuses, and we've got the flinch chance, which is boosted by Serene Grace. So to work out the overall chance for the opponent to be able to attack, we need to see how this looks in battle. And what I did was I got a Blissey with Serene Grace, Ice Beam, Attract, Swagger, and Headbutt. So it's got all of those things all on that one set, and we can try to be really disgusting with it. So what I wanted to do was try to apply Attract first, because it sticks around, it doesn't disappear, so I can just go for Attract and then try to do all of these other things. So I tried to then spam Ice Beam to freeze the opponent, and then I would confuse them with Swagger, and then just go for Headbutt flinches to try to prevent them from attacking. I wanted to see like what order all the effects activated in, and just to see what this looked like in battle, so that I could then theory out and see what the mechanics are and what the chances are for all of this put together. So that's what it looks like in battle, but what does it look like with the maths? What is the actual number chance for this poor Snorlax getting an attack off? So that's when we come to the probability trees again, which I've covered in a video before, but we're going to be looking at them again. So what happens is we've got this Snorlax, and it's got all of these statuses and things going on all at the same time. So it starts off as frozen, and it needs to thaw first. That's the first thing that comes, and it's only got a 1 in 5 chance to thaw. If it does thaw, it then has to go through the flinch chance, which is only a 4 in 10 chance not to be flinched because of that Serene Grace ability boosting the odds. It means that it's actually very likely that it will flinch even if it thaws. But if it doesn't flinch, it then has the confusion check to pass, which is actually in its favor. So it's got a 2/3 chance to pass that confusion check. And once it's passed that confusion check, it's then a coin flip as to whether it will be immobilized by love or not. And if you pass that a half chance, then you will actually be able to get to attack. That's a lot of checks before you can attack though, so that's going to be tricky for the poor Snorlax. So overall, what is the chance for this Snorlax to attack? Well, what you have to do is times up all of the chances of each of the stages going on that path to the attack. And so if we put all of that together, we find out that the chance of a Snorlax getting that attack off is 2.67%, which is tiny. Now that's comparable to missing a compoundized sleep powder. I don't know if that's a good comparison for you guys, but it's a very low chance. It's like super hard for this Snorlax to get that attack off. But that's not actually the whole story. So all I've done so far, just because it's kind of easier for me to do in game, is look at the singles aspect. But in the doubles aspect, can we actually change this up to be even less of a chance? And the answer is yes. So if we go to the probability trees, let's look to see what things might be affected in a doubles battle. The freeze can't be affected. You can only have one status at a time, so that check is the same. But the flinch chance can be affected because you can have two Pokemon attacking that Snorlax and trying to prevent it from attacking. So if we're just taking this as us trying to prevent the opponent from attacking and they're not attacking themselves at the same time, which wouldn't really make much sense, we can then say that we can get an extra flinch chance with another Serene Grace Blissey, for example. And so it will have to go through that 4/10 flinch chance and it doesn't get flinched, and then it'll have to do it again for the other Blissey's headbutt. We then have to look at confusion. You can't have multiple confusions, so that doesn't work. We wouldn't change anything there. And in terms of attract, in this game, you can only be attracted to one Pokemon. We've only got lovely, beautiful, monogamous relationships around here. We're not having any adulterous Snorlaxes, so attract can only be applied once. So again, no effect there in doubles. The only effect is that you can get another chance at flinching the opponent. So if we plug that into the equation, it's basically just another 4 in 10 chance to times everything by, and the final chance to attack is 1.07%. Like literally 1 in 100 times this Snorlax will get an attack off. Like that's tiny. 1 in 100. That is so rare. So I think that that's pretty cool, and that is going to be like the way that you can try to prevent your opponent from attacking. That is basically the minimum chance to attack and the maximum hacks that you could try to apply to stop your opponent from attacking. So that's pretty cool. But the video isn't over yet. And so why is that? Well, this isn't actually the minimum attack chance in the game, but the mechanic that I'm about to talk about isn't in your control really. It's about what Pokemon the opponent is using. So what we're going to talk about now is Disobedience. No, not the cool art house film, but Pokemon Disobedience. So you guys may or may not be aware that if you trade a very high level Pokemon with your friend before you've got the necessary gym badges to use it, that Pokemon may not listen to your commands. When you go for an attack, there's a chance that it will just turn away or loaf around or even just fall asleep. So this is a mechanic that's kind of interesting in game. It means that you can't basically cheese the first gym leader with a level 100 Pokemon that your friend traded you. Well, you kind of can, but it takes a long time because it just doesn't do what you want it to do. I've looked at the Bulbapedia page and the mechanics into this. There's not a ton of research done there because it's an in-game mechanic only, so people wanting to do battles aren't really bothered by it. You can just get the gym badges if you need it. So there's not a ton of information there, but what there is there, I looked into, there's this like weird complex equation, and it takes into account the level of the Pokemon that you're trying to use, the level of Pokemon that you can actually control with the number of gym badges and things that you've got, and then it plugs in a random number in there as well. Long story short, if you've got a level 100 Pokemon before the first gym, the chance that a Pokemon will obey you is only 16%. There's an 84% chance that it will just do something completely differently. So if we think that this is going to be the target for all of our mischievous hacks that we've just talked about previously, so they've got a 1% chance to try to attack after all of the hacks, and then they've got a 16% chance to just loaf around anyway or put themselves to sleep after thawing from the freeze. What does that mean as the minimum chance to attack this turn? Well, it puts it at 0.1%. 0.1%. So we're talking about 1 in 1,000 turns. This level 100 Pokemon just will not get the chance to attack, which is kind of crazy. And I think that that's a pretty interesting stat that you guys can take away and think about. But yeah, that's going to be where we leave it today. The little bit at the end there about Disobedience I think is more of a caveat. I just know that I'll get comments about it if I didn't talk about it, so I thought I'd put it in. But really, the way that you can control it in doubles battle is going to be a 1% chance to attack, in a singles battle a 2.67% chance to attack. Hope you found this one interesting. It was a bit of a deep dive, and I really enjoyed making it, but it was a bit crazy. Please leave a like if you did enjoy it, because that really helps me plan out what content you guys want to see. But that's going to be all for today. Thanks so much for watching. I've been foofootoo, you've been awesome, and hopefully see you next time. Goodbye.